Are you in a relationship with somebody and you are wondering whether or not you should stay or should you go? Is it a toxic relationship? I'm going to be addressing that in this video. As an attorney, I had received the question many times, should I stay or should I go? And now I help people all over the world as a high conflict trainer. I certify people all over the world and I have programs and I've literally helped thousands and thousands of people. And I still have people many times who are asking, how do you know? How do you know when to end a relationship? And really, it's something that you have to answer in your gut. But I want to give you some guides. I want to give you some thoughts around it. Well, for one thing, I have often said many, many times that do you have the three A's present, the three A's of what I call the three deadly sins of a relationship, which are abuse, addiction, or adultery. And I've been saying that for so many years because those are the three things that really attack the integrity of the foundation, that integrity of trust. And that abuse side can be physical abuse, mental abuse, or emotional abuse, any kind of abuse, right? And if you are dealing with any kind of abuse, especially physical abuse, then you definitely have to get help and support that you need. And that is obviously a sign for sure that you know that it's time to get help and a toxic relationship. That's an obvious sign. But sometimes it's not as obvious. Sometimes it's not as clear. Sometimes you think, well, I do think I still love the person. I think there might be some life left in, I don't know. And sometimes it's not as black and white because you have your reasons. And I can tell you that all of them are valid because they're yours, because they're your reasons. I definitely want to say that if you need therapy, that you should get it. And if you don't have access to a therapist, I do have a sponsor on this channel, which is BetterHelp. And you can go to betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung to get access to that help. It's a sponsor for us, so we receive commissions on that. It doesn't cost you any extra. We just want you to have access to help and support that you need. I want you to think about some of the signs that you might be in a relationship with a narcissist. Some of the signs that you might be in a relationship with a person who is not probably going to change. And that is a person who is controlling, a person who's manipulative, a person who has a constant need for validation, who has no empathy, who is saying that they're going to change, but then doesn't, who is constantly repeating a pattern. You find yourself often being disappointed because they are making promises that they don't keep. And you're doubting yourself and you're doubting your reality and made to feel like you're going crazy. And you're waking up in the middle of the night and you're obsessing about things and you left feeling unsettled. And you know this person is actually not for you and you don't have their support. They're not willing to work on themselves and they're not willing to make any changes. They constantly are moving that goalpost for changing. Honestly, let's say they're going to make a change, but then they don't really ever make that change. It's become something else that they're going to change. And then suddenly they might do the things that you've been complaining about just because they think that you're going to walk out the door, but then it goes away as soon as you stay. And they might say things to you like, oh, you would be lost without me, or they might try to guilt you into staying, like, how could you leave me, or how could you leave the kids? If they say things like that to you, it's not about you. Or they might say things like, nobody else would love you the way that I do, or who else is ever gonna want you? That's not love. If they try to guilt you into it, then that's not love either. So if you know in your gut, if you feel it in your gut, it probably isn't right. And if you find yourself on the internet researching narcissism, because you're feeling like this person doesn't care about you because they don't take care of you when you're sick, or they don't care about the things that you care about, they're probably not for you. If you feel it in your bones, it's probably what you think it is. So my suggestion to you is get help, get support, get some coaching, get some therapy, get a support system in place. Think about what you might need and then think about it. Because if this person isn't changing, they're not going to change. Narcissists don't change. And recognize it's not your fault. It has nothing to do with you. It has to do with them, has to do with their flaws and their trauma, their issues. But change is not likely. Narcissists are wounded people. So you need to make a plan for leaving if that's your choice. Have a stash of cash. Have a plan for what's going to happen with the children or what's going to happen with the house. Those are things that I can help you with, right? So get your free Crush My Negotiation Prep worksheet to get started, for one thing. That's free. You can get that at winmynegotiation.com. Start lining up your plan as far as what you're going to be doing. Change your passwords. Figure out what you're going to be doing to have boundaries in place. But before you get ready, understand that you have to get yourself ready, get yourself in mental position to get ready. But you can do hard things. So I want you to put that in the comments. I can do hard things to start to prepare yourself mentally for whatever your choice is. Either way is hard. Staying is hard if you choose to stay in a toxic relationship. It's hard too. If that's your choice, then know that that's your choice because you have good reasons for it. And don't feel guilty for that either. You are making your choices based on the information that you have when you have it. And don't feel guilty for it because whatever your choices are, those are the best choices for you at the time. Choose it because you have to.
But my secret 11th key to happiness, which I didn't put in this book I wrote called Your 10 Keys to Happiness, but my secret 11th key to happiness is about getting rid of toxic people. And I have to tell you, and I'm going to sound so naive, but I didn't realize until I was 50 that I could get rid of people.
Mm.
And I actually didn't even know what a narcissist was. And then all of a sudden my eyes were open and I realized, oh, basically every single person in my life who was really bothering me and who was toxic was also a narcissist. I mean, I guess that it just goes together. And so I got rid of a friend, a certain friend who, was one of those friends where it was always all about her. And I would be saying things like, well, I have to go have lunch with so and so. And then I read this Chicken Soup for the Soul story about this woman who realized that she could basically weed the garden of her life and get rid of the, quote, friends who weren't really friends, but were really more like passive aggressive frenemies. And I realized, oh my gosh, I can do that too. You're kind of stuck with your relatives, but you can reduce your exposure to your relatives, but you can just get rid of friends, or if it's too awkward, you can at least reduce your exposure to them a lot, like see them once a year, instead of 5 times a year or every week, whatever you were doing. So that was a big one for me, but I don't really put it on my official list of 10 keys to happiness because it just seems so snarky to say that you should get rid of people, but of course you should.
Oh, but I think that that is so true. I mean, I think, and I'd love to know more about that story about weeding the garden of your life, because I do think that, I always say defend your light with your life, because, I do think that vibrational energy is so important to protect. And we are beings of energy, and we do pick up the vibrational energy of people who are around us. And you can feel if somebody is bringing you down or making you feel better, and you can feel how you feel after you have left being with somebody. Do you feel lighter and more excited after you've left being in somebody's presence? Do you feel uplifted? Or do you feel like, "Ah, you know what? I kind of feel icky after I've been with that person, you know?"
Exactly. I know you should come away from seeing a friend or a relative feeling energized and empowered and smiling and thinking, "Oh, that was really fun. I can't wait to see them again." So the woman who wrote the story that changed it for me, she actually let this so-called friend drive her to chemo one day. And this woman had had various friends drive her to chemo, and it was the only time that she had a really bad reaction to chemo was after this so-called friend drove her, because the friend spent the whole time driving her, telling her about everybody she knew who had gone through chemo who had a bad outcome. I mean, it was ridiculous. And
Oh.
that's when she realized that you only have so much time in your life, and you only have so much emotional energy, and you can't expend that emotional energy on people who are dragging you down. And so that's the story that gave me permission to start cleaning up the garden of my life. I think cancer does bring you a certain clarity. But the other thing I do, and this goes back to the forgiveness concept a little bit, is certain people you just can't get out of your life. But if you use there's another thing I do with the power of forgiveness, and that is you look through to what is causing the person to act that way, what is motivating them. And often you can actually realize that they are really unhappy people and they have so many problems of their own. And you could just say, gee, I really shouldn't take it personally because that person just acts out and does that to everybody. And it's just a function of that person's own problems. And it almost puts you in a superiority position because you start feeling like you're better than that person because you start thinking, well, I'm glad I'm not her. But that works also. And then the other thing that I've been doing for years, and I started doing this when I was in my 30s, is I build what I call the wall of indifference. I
Mm.
remember when I was in my mid 30s, I was acting as an investment banker and I helped take a company public, and then their stock tanked pretty quickly after they went public. And I was at a meeting at this brokerage firm, and the head of trading in a room filled with all the traders, so probably 30 guys in this room. And this was, 30 years ago. So it was a way more male oriented place at that time, Wall Street. But this guy is screaming at me for 20 minutes nonstop with all these guys watching. And I'm just standing there at the front, little 5'3" me, while this guy is screaming at me. But he was just really taking out his anger about the stock price going down. And he viewed me as somebody weak who he could scream at. So he was just letting all his frustrations out. And I was the victim, except that I didn't get victimized. I just stood there looking at him and thinking, you are a pathetic little man screaming at me when you're really just mad at the world. And I started building what I call the wall of indifference. I put these bricks up in front of me, and I was behind my wall of indifference, and he was screaming on the other side of the wall. And I was just thinking about what a little idiot he was. And by thinking of him with utter disdain, he couldn't hurt me, because he couldn't touch me. It was like he was throwing, missiles at this wall, but the wall was stopping him from actually getting to me. So that works also. And that's a really good way to deal with people like that. I mean, I've had other people in business who I've had to deal with who were, real jerks. And I always put that wall of indifference up and I don't let them actually touch me. I'm behind that wall.
Oh, that is so powerful. I love that. I mean, I've always said that I wanted to actually just have my podcast focus on how powerful people have learned how to overcome toxic people in their lives and become powerful anyway, especially women, because I think that women have had a higher bar, have had a harder time, and I love the idea of a wall of indifference. I think that that is so powerful. And you know, I hope everybody goes back and listens to that over and over again, because there's so many times that I have said to people, Look at them as if they're a toddler having a tantrum on the floor. You wouldn't go down and have a tantrum on the floor with them, like if you just look at them and you go, okay, are you done now? But that is sort of the same concept. I think that is so, so good. Thank
You
you for
also have
sharing
to
that.
look sure, you have to look at what motivates them. So this isn't something I got from Chicken Soup for the Soul, but this is just something that I do in general. If somebody's giving me a really hard time, I try to figure out what motivates them and how I'm going to get around them. So it just becomes a challenge. Like I remember one time my husband and my brother-in-law and I were visiting my mother-in-law in the hospital, and she was in the ICU, and she could only have like two visitors at a time, and she already had two visitors, but we knew she would want to see us, and things were kind of dire, so we really had to see her. And so the guy at the front desk, Mr. Power Man himself, he said we couldn't go, and we didn't know what room she was in, but if we had known what room she was in, we could have just gone. And so my husband and my brother-in-law were starting to protest, and I said, guys, go, get out. And then I went up to the guy. I said, I totally understand your rules. Of course, she should only have two people at a time. And this was back when you couldn't use a cell phone in a hotel room, which of course is not, I mean, in a hospital room, but that's not the rule anymore. But this was when they did have that rule about cell phones. I said to him, I need to somehow get a message to the people in the room that we're not allowed in. So I'm going to have to just go and tell them in person that we're not allowed in. So could you tell me the room number so that I can go and tell them that we're not allowed to come in? And so then he gave me the room number, and then the three of us snuck in and went to her room. So I just had to appeal to his bullying basically to get around the rule. I mean, it worked so easily, you know?
Yeah, because he's not going to go back there and get you after that, right?
No, and he thought I was being compliant, and so it worked out perfectly. And she
Yeah.
was thrilled to see us. I mean, she would have been, of course, she wanted her five family members to be there. She didn't want us to be left out.
Yeah, of course.
All of a sudden you're gonna like have all these eureka moments and go, oh my God, that was abuse. Oh, of course they did that. Yeah, they never let me have any money. Oh yeah, all the pieces start to come together because they were so sneaky, they were so charming, and the abuse was done behind door and very stealthily. So, that's where the danger is that we think we're dealing with a good guy or a good girl, and that's not what's going to happen. Again, the war is on and you're in a battle and you have to not believe their lies.
Yeah, so true. And don't ever think that you're going to go to mediation early and you're going to get it done and go have, the collaborative divorce and all of that. That's such a waste of time and a waste of money.
Mhm.
Such a waste of time. And I
Have
always
you
tell people not to like have your lawyers do settlement proposals back and forth. That's a big fat waste of time and money. You're never going to settle your case like that ever.
Now, have you heard of um, anybody in a divorce case taking the decisions, and this is someone I know, and taking it to the appellate court, appealing divorce decisions? I had never heard of that.
Well, obviously you can appeal. Yeah, I mean, you can
Yeah,
appeal divorce decisions all the time.
I've never seen appeals for divorce. This is the
Oh
first.
yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
all the time.
wow. I mean, it's a 5-year divorce. It's
Oh
just a,
yeah, I used to write them.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I have a couple of written opinions myself that are out there. So yeah, I've written appellate decisions. I've appealed them myself. Yeah.
And those are the kind of malignant narcissists that we're talking about, where they're not even going to believe the judge. I'm better than that. I'm going to fight that. I'm going to fight that. Right? That's the difference between the covert who just gets everything and the malignant who is going to be ordered to just pay support. And let me challenge that. Let me take that to appeal. I mean, it's ridiculous how many judgments in this person's case is like appeal. You know.
Yeah, I mean, of course you can appeal. I mean, you can't appeal if it's a written marital settlement agreement. I mean, but you can appeal if you go to trial and you don't like the decision.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, that's what I tell people all the time. If you go to trial and you win everything that you want, the other side can appeal it.
Yeah. Wow. Kind of crazy here. Yeah.
And then it goes on and it goes
Mhm.
on, and especially if there's lots of money.
Lots of, and if there's difference in salary or in money, that long-term thing is going to bankrupt the one who doesn't have all the assets.
I've seen it happen.
And that's where they just have to stop and surrender because, well, I can't keep spending all this money I don't have. And there's no guarantee they will get a bigger piece of the pie because they fight, so they walk away. And that's a risk.
Well, yeah, and especially because on appeal, it's a different standard. You're not allowed to add any evidence that was not considered on the underlying case. You're
Hmm.
only allowed to look to see if there were errors as a matter of law, or if there was an error like that the trial judge made or something like that. I mean, so that's why only 15% of cases are overturned on appeal.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a good number to know. Okay.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty low.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Wow.
so you have to win the case on trial. I mean, it's a very low number.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So you
Yeah.
want to know some other really bad things that they're not doing?
Yes.
So some of the other mistakes is really about knowing their rights so that they can fight for parenting time. Again, if your narcissist is gaslighting, saying you have no right to the kids, so many people just go, "Oh, I guess I don't," and then they eventually get to a lawyer and they learn the truth, but they're in fear for 6 months before they found out the truth that that isn't the way the law works, right? But they believe those sort of things, and just really staying in mediation too long, like you said, going into mediation. I have a lot of people that go in and there's not even offer on the table and they nothing gets, I've had people with $40,000 mediation days and nothing and sort of staying in and going, oh, let's come back next week and see if we can get nothing again. So there's a point where mediation works and then there's a point with a narcissist where they're just hard down. Nope, nope, nope. And that's when they stay too long and just, have to go to the next level.
Well, I mean, I would say for mediation, you need to have a very clear picture going in
Mhm,
to what you want and what you have to have your option A, your option B. You have to have all your leverage ready to go. You
mhm,
have to know what your best case scenario is, what your worst case scenario is, what I
mhm,
call your choke point is,
mhm.
or your walk away. And when you hit that, you got to be done. And that's that.
Yeah,
And then be ready to go to trial.
yeah.
Because the person who has the most leverage is the one who's ready to walk away, right? I mean, like that's when you're ready to walk away, when you're okay with, well, okay, we can be done,
Mhm,
and you're cool and you're calm, and this isn't about being emotional, this is about business basically.
mhm,
I mean, even though it's children and it's money and it's your home and your business and all of whatever it is, this is at the end of the day a business transaction.
mhm.
And
Of assets and children time. Yeah, it's
yeah,
basic.
right. It's very basic. And so at the end of the day, this is what it's going to be or it's not. And if it's not going to you're not going to agree, then you can present your evidence to the court of law and let them decide.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, yeah.
Yeah.
What
So,
are the biggest mistakes you see?
oh, I mean
Mhm,
getting emotional is a
mhm,
huge one, and letting the narcissist see that emotion, because if you once you do that, you're game over.
mhm,
Because you're just giving them supply at that point.
mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Never let them see you sweat.
They should make a sweatshirt out of that. But it's absolutely true. It's a powerful tool for them to see because then they know they've got you and then they just push the button down a little bit harder and they know they can get you to crumble. So if they, if you've got that air, like you just said, you know what? I'm willing to walk away. We'll take my chance in court. Go ahead. There's a different game with that. When you've got that confidence and you've got something that you know this is not what I'm going to settle for, and they're trying to give you a really bad deal, you have to be able to walk away and say, all right, I'll take my chances with a judge. And
Yeah.
that's leverage where they're going to be like, okay, all right, let's come down here. Because again, there are also some of them like to spend money and some of them are like, no, I don't want to waste my money. So they might come back around if you give them the clue that you're willing to walk away and you have that leverage over them.
Yeah. Another mistake I would say is letting narcissists get away with things too quickly or too much. Like, for example, when they uh, don't provide discovery on time, or they don't um, comply with a court order or something like that. Every single time you have to be right on their butt. So file a motion to compel, file the motion for contempt, like immediately. Don't let it go. Like immediately on them right away. So that discovery was due on June 10th, June 11th. File that motion to compel. They didn't send over the support uh, on May 1st, like it was due. May 2nd, motion to enforce the order, or motion to show cause why they shouldn't be held in contempt. I mean, like, don't let them get away with anything, because the minute you do, they think, I'm getting away with this.
Yeah.
Here
But
I go.
with 3-4 years later, that like there's still no discovery, and they've done the motions to compel, motions to comply, motions to this, all of these things, and contempt, and then nothing ever happens. Do you see the family court doing anything with the contempt kind of things?
Well, but this is why you have to keep right on it, because the family court will be like, oh my God, here comes this person again. The other thing is, why are you going to them for discovery that you can get subpoenas for? I mean, stop asking for requests for production or things like that for bank statements when you could just go directly to the bank and get a subpoena, because they're not going to produce it readily, and they're just not going to. So if you know that they have accounts at Bank of America or Wells Fargo or some bank that is like an easily accessible bank, stop wasting your money on motions to compel from this person. Because it's not that much money to issue a subpoena directly to that bank and just say, give me 12 months of bank statements from Ray Schmo with this particular social security number. It's way cheaper, and you'll get it all. So I suggest that you just get a subpoena for that bank. Seriously, you'll save yourself a hell of a lot of time, money, and headache. So that's what I really do suggest that you do for financial documents, because they're not going to produce it. They're not. And you're gonna spend a whole lot of paralegal time while your paralegal pages through and looks for, oh, because they just decided to be a jackass, they didn't give you page 10 of June, and they didn't give you month July of this, because they just don't want to, or they're withholding. And now you just paid the paralegal $125 an hour or whatever it is to go through all those statements and find that out. And now you got to pay the attorney the the letter to send to the lawyer. Yeah, you didn't do this, because they have to do some sort of a letter to make it look like you went along and tried to, settle it first, because you got to do that before you can file the motion to compel. So there's all this steps of fees before you have to do all of this. So you might as well just go send the subpoena out.
Absolutely. I should have done that. I actually laminated the last page of my divorce decree. Not many people do that, but my husband was in contempt 6 out of our 7 trials. for never handing in paperwork. So we kept having to go back and have another trial because we don't have any paperwork. And we'll go back and we go back and we go back. And so when it came to the legal fees question, the judge said, I don't know why both of your fees. Tracy says it's because we have to keep coming back because he's in contempt 6 times. But his side, and I'm not going to hold it up because this is too big, but they said it was a witch hunt to get the paperwork he was in contempt for. And this was in 2012, a witch hunt to get the paperwork. We should have just subpoenaed it. Like you said, it would have saved me $100,000 of going to court 7 times, right? So this is the lesson for everybody, that take the actions and ask your lawyer. If they are sitting there holding up the thing and going, oh, we'll give them another week, or I sent their lawyer an email and I haven't heard back in 3 weeks, you have to take the lawyer and be like, please file, get me a subpoena to get these records, and stop this hamster wheel of you wasting money hoping that they'll give you a piece of paper. Just go get it.
Just go get it.
Yeah.
Just go get it,
Yeah.
because you're not going to get it. They're not going to give it to you. So just go get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something that'll just save you so much money and time right there, that I
Right.
just gave you.
That was a good one. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It'll help a lot of people.
Yeah. So let's talk about future faking. So, the word integrity, doing what you say you're going to do, well, that doesn't really apply to narcissists. And in fact, if you keep allowing narcissists to continue to promise you the world, and then you realize it's not materializing, you're actually enabling their behavior, which of course is not something that we necessarily want to do, because we want to maybe hopefully get out of these relationships with these narcissists. So what happens with narcissists is part of the love bombing process, which is how they get you into these relationships in the first place, is just kind of promising you the world. The whole concept of over promise or under deliver, or under promise and over deliver, that you're supposed to do in sales. They kind of do the over promise and under deliver. That's basically what future faking is. They say whatever they need to about what your future might be in order to get you to do what they want you to do, or get you to get off of what it is that you're bothering them about. Or even in the beginning of the relationship, when they're in the love bomb stage, which they do love bomb all throughout the relationship when they need to, by the way. And if you want to know more about love bombing, you should definitely check out my video on love bombing. But one of the 101 conversation that, the glossary of basic narcissistic terms is that you need to know about is what we call this future faking. And I have a whole bunch more videos on the 101s, basic terms on narcissism, and you should definitely check out some of those as well, especially, gaslighting and flying monkeys and narcissistic injury and supply and things like that. And all of those videos are also on my channel. So, but what happens with narcissists is they want you to do what they want you to do, which is give them an endless amount of narcissistic supply. So narcissistic supply is anything that feeds their ego. So it can be giving them tons of compliments and adulation and respect, or maybe it's giving them money, or maybe it's giving them a place to live, or maybe it's, um, giving them the prestige of being with you, or allowing you them a life that they want, something like that. But they also get supply from manipulating you and lying to you, and getting you to do things that they want you to do, and devaluing you and putting you down, and making that that you are lesser to them, just even in little small ways, sometimes like not remembering to do something that you asked them to do, or something like that. But with future faking is a way of getting getting you to believe that, okay, even though you're not getting what you want from them now, that you will get it from them at some other time. So down the road, you're going to have this amazing life together, or starting now, they're going to be so much better. I was just talking to a client whose husband was, um, looking at other women online and doing all of these things, and she almost left him. And he said, I will never, never, never do that again. In fact, I will get rid of all my social media pages. I'll do whatever I need to do in order to keep you, in order for you to stay with me. Don't leave me, don't leave me, don't leave me. And so all this future promise of how life would look, and then they stick to it for a little bit of a period of time, but then they really can't maintain that because they really didn't plan to keep their promise anyway. So they stick to it for a little bit of a period of time, and then of course they fall off the map and they don't end up continuing with whatever it was they said they were going to do. And in this particular case, that husband, of course, continued to maintain relationships with women online because he just thought that he would be able to get away with it. Because, the reason why he continues to do that is because of that whoring that they need to do of getting as much narcissistic supply as they possibly can. So he didn't really plan to ever get rid of these other women online. He just wanted to future fake it with the wife to say, I will do this, and in the future things will be better, and look, I'm going to be the person that you always wanted me to be, and blah, blah, blah. And it's just empty promises, empty promises. That's basically what future faking is a bunch of empty promises. And if this is sounding familiar to you, give me an amen in the comments. So how do you know if you're enabling future faking? It's by making excuses for this person. And sometimes we do that in order to kind of protect ourselves because we don't want to believe that this person is bad. And so sometimes we'll find ourselves making excuses. Like, let's say somebody said that they're going to start coming home on time. That this person is always late, and they said, okay, from now on, I'm going to start coming home on time. And so now they start saying things like, I can't make it. I have to work late. Traffic is bad. I have a big project going on. And so you find yourself kind of making excuses for that person, like, well, they have a lot of work commitments, or, well, reliability isn't really their strong suit, or punctuality isn't really their strong suit. It never really has been. And so you start making excuses for that person. Another type of way that we sort of enable it is by saying something like, I know his or her heart is in the right place. And a lot of times we do this really because we don't want to believe that this person that we've been with or spent so much time with, it can be bad, and a lot of times it's not all bad. I mean, that's the thing with narcissists, because of the love bomb stage. Sometimes things are actually not all bad. Sometimes they seem like they can be really good, and we spend like the entire relationship craving, wanting that goodness to come back, wanting to see that good part of that person. And so sometimes we make excuses by saying, hey, I know that the person's heart is in the right place, even though they're not doing what they say they're going to do. Another way that we enable it is to just say, you know what, I just decided I'm going to live with that. I know that they're never going to do what they say they're going to do, so I just assume that I'm going to be responsible. So let's just say that this person says, I know you've been shouldering a lot of the housework. I know we both work all the time, and you do everything at home. I'll take on doing the laundry. And maybe the person does the laundry for like a week or two, and then, there it is, the laundry's piling up. So instead of wanting to start an argument, you find yourself saying, you know what, I'll just go ahead and do it. I'll just assume that, it's all my responsibility. And if the other person decides to do it, well, that's a bonus, but I'm not going to expect it. I just expect that they're not going to keep their word. That also enables the narcissist. The other thing that enables it is just not bringing it up at all, not reminding them what their promise was. And a lot of times when you're dealing with a narcissist, you don't want to remind them what their promise was, because if you do, it can end up being a big, huge fight. And if you know that that's the case, then you're probably with a narcissist, because, a person who's not a narcissist, who wants a relationship to work, who actually has care and empathy for the other person, would be like, oh my God, you're right. I'm so sorry. I said that I would do that and I didn't do that. That's what a person who has integrity would do. But a narcissist wants to deflect. They want to project. They want to make sure that it's your fault. If you are afraid to bring it up because you know that they're going to say, you're right, I didn't do that. It was because it's your fault. I'm sorry you didn't do what you said you were going to do. That whole faux apology. If you want to know more about narcissists, faux apology, and whether or not they say sorry, check out my video on do narcissists say sorry, and if they do they mean it? But a lot of times that's what you're going to get. And so if you find yourself just not bringing it up at all, it's probably because you just don't want the backlash of whatever that's going to be. So, they future faked. They said they were going to do something. They didn't do it. And you just find yourself saying, and you know what, I'm not going to bring it up. It's not even worth it. So if you find yourself harboring a ton of resentment, because who harbors more resentment about the future faking that didn't happen? Do you think it's the narcissist, or do you think it's the person who was the victim of the narcissist? I guarantee you it's the person who's been the victim, because you just sit there and you go, okay, well, this person is not delivering on their promises. They're not keeping their promises to me. Either I bring it up and I deal with the wrath, or I don't bring it up and then I still end up not getting what it is that I wanted. And so you end up carrying this sadness and this resentment, and it actually turns into feeling terrible about yourself and feeling guilty that you want something because that's what they want you to feel. And or you end up having like no self-esteem or no sense of self, and you end up feeling like you're just a shell of yourself because of these empty promises that just keep not materializing. Because obviously you start to think, I guess I'm just not worth having these promises be delivered on. I guess I'm not worth this person doing what they say they're going to do, where it's actually the opposite. The other person just has no sense of self and no sense of self-worth and no sense of value. So they try to put everybody down and make it look like that they're better than everybody else. And so it's the great game of manipulation. It's just one form of manipulation that they use to get people to do what they want them to do. So in the end, future faking is really a classic sign of narcissism. And if you are seeing this, then you are probably in a relationship with a narcissist, unfortunately. So let's say somebody feels like they are a victim of a narcissist and they're never going to be able to get past that. They can never win. They can, my life is horrible. I can never get out of it. I'm stuck in this situation. I in fact, I love this person and I can never get over this person. I'm never going to be able to get out of this situation. What do I do?
I would say first thing that's going to be a very challenging question to ask yourself, and this is not an easy question, especially when you're doing in this capacity in this conversation, right? Is first question you got to ask yourself is actually what am I getting in holding myself in this emotion around this narcissist? Why am I staying in this emotion? Not why am I staying in this relationship? Why am I staying in this emotional state? Why am I choosing this emotion right now? Because that's going to give you a metacognitive awareness, and then it's just going to make you aware of why you're actually making that decision to actually choose the emotion of it. And then the second question I would ask, and it's so, and I've dealt with so many people in this capacity, especially in my work, I deal with a lot of ex relationships, ex wives, and the conversation turns into this: is that where are you being a narcissist? Because in my work, I've found that everybody is an altruist and everybody's a narcissist. If I start asking the question, where are you being narcissist about this? Is your victimhood part of your narcissism? Because being a victim could be a reason that you're holding on to a story. It's just the opposite side of the spectrum, but it could be part of the narcissistic process you're holding on to. Because one could express it in the form of anger, one can also express it in the form of shame, depending on the individual. So you got to ask yourself the question: number one, why am I choosing this emotion? Number two, where am I being a narcissist? And number three, do I really want to? Do I want to stay in this state? And number four, what action steps do I need to take? I like the 4-step framework in that, so that you can actually make a decision. I'm not saying that's going to heal or move everything in your life, but it's going to get you to open an awareness, to ask different questions, to move different ways, to get you to become more aware rather than staying stuck in a victim pattern, and a pattern that you may not be aware of. Because I've always said that the more awareness you find of yourself and the awareness that you create, once you have the awareness, then you have better decisions you can make. But when you're blind to the awareness, you're stuck in the pattern. You're stuck in the routine of it. So I would do that to start with that. I help a lot of people do that. And then they start opening their questions, start opening their mind, and start saying, really, then the reality of it all kind of sets in a little bit more, and the story tends to subside.
Mhm. What about people who just feel like they have no money and like they can never make any money? That's a big issue for people.
It is. And in my work, I found money comes down to one thing. I have a book coming out in February. It's called Wired for Wealth, a brain-based approach to making money in the 21st century. And um, I will tell you something about money, that money is 100% emotionally driven. And whatever you resent, you resist. And I've seen this thousands of times, is that if you hold on to resentment in your physiology, in your neurology, you will resent and push away money. You will push away income from coming in the door. You will push away the dollars from coming in the door. And if you're holding on to guilt and the emotion of guilt, then what you're going to do is you're going to give away your money. And I think I've classified 5 primary emotions, from pride, shame, resentment, infatuation, and guilt. And these 5 emotions run our life. Everything's a subset of these emotions. But if an individual is not 100% grateful for their past, not 100% grateful for the journey that they've come through, and they have any resentment in that, they're going to actually create issues. I was just reading an article yesterday. Someone said that there's over 300 to 500 traumas, they're calling, that people are running in their nervous system pattern. In my experience, it's far more. I think it's more. But they're saying 300 to 500 major ones. This was in Psychology Today. They were talking about this. I think it's actually more than that. The work that I do, we do 300 to 500, what I call root experiences in a day. But sometimes people have 3, 4, 5,000 that are running your system. And until we don't, here's the thing: like, it affects our health, it affects our cortisol levels, it affects our blood pressure, it affects our organic function. All this plays a factor in how our body works. We can't separate emotions from the function of our body. So it's imperative that we heal ourselves so that we can actually become healthier in the process.
Yeah. How does one start to heal themselves?
I think it's with real questions. I think it's with real questions. I think it's with asking yourself questions of, why am I choosing this emotion? That's one of the most basic, most primitive questions for me at least, that I came up with. But I think it's so wise. It's like, I remember a moment when, maybe I must have been 21, 22 years old, and I was angry. I was super angry. I was like in a rage state. And all of a sudden, like, this question popped into my head. I don't know if it's happened to you or any of your listeners who are listening. I asked myself the question, why am I angry? And it was like, just like this. I just froze in the middle of an argument. I just froze. I was like, why am I angry? And then I said, why am I actually choosing the emotion of anger right now? I was like, huh. And it literally deflated the whole thing. Whenever I was angry, but I just chose a different response to it. And I think that's when all of this started to begin for me. I started to work on all this stuff. It's just kind of been my work over the years, and I just kind of started taking it. But I think that's one of the biggest things. If you're in that pattern and you're choosing an emotion, ask yourself the question, why am I choosing this emotion? It must serve you in some capacity. So how is it serving me? Okay. Then ask yourself, how is it a disservice to you? All of a sudden, that entire pattern will change. And I think that's the first step to ask yourself, because reacting to emotions versus creating your own emotional response is two different states. And that those questions open that door.
Yeah. I think, what you're really saying is taking responsibility for your own emotions, right? And, and not saying, hey, I'm angry because you made me angry,
For sure.
because I think a lot of times people will say, I'm angry because you did this to me, or you
Right.
made me angry, or you caused this to me. And what I try to say to people all the time is that, whenever you say, you know, you did this to me, or you caused this to to me, you're saying, you're a victim, or you
100%.
know, you're giving this person power over your life, right? And that is, you're in victim mode at that point, and you're not in creation mode. And that is, you have to be taking responsibility for your life. And that is a very hard thing to do.
I love everything you just said. I could said perfect. I couldn't say it better myself. I agree with you 100%. 100%. You have to take responsibility for your emotions. If not, you'll continue to create the story of victimhood and blame everyone else versus take your own responsibility of life. Perfectly said. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, that's the first step for transformation.
I agree. And I guess my methodology is the questions that I'm asking is helping someone take that responsibility of that state, right? And once you say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna take responsibility, it's like losing weight. Losing weight is a scientific formulaic process to do this. Hormones are involved, all that stuff is involved. But if you diet, if you exercise, and you eat less calories, your hormones will rebalance and reorganize so that you can actually lose weight. This is a physiologic fact. But we blame everything else inside of it. And that makes us a victim. If we want to take charge of our life and take charge of our emotions and take charge of our relationships, you're 100% right. You've got to take responsibility consciously, not reactively. Completely agree.
Right. Right. So, what is something that somebody could start to do right now at home? They are dealing with a narcissist, they're dealing with or whatever it is that they're dealing with. What's the first step that they could do at home? What's like something that you could leave them with?
It's going to sound so simple, and it's really like it's not this big crazy, philosophical thing. It's not this big psychological thing. I would tell you, number one thing to do is get enough vitamin D into your system
Mm,
and walk.
mm,
Like it sounds so simple, but I'm not the guy who's like, everything is personal development, everything is thinking. Like your body has a certain response. You have to do certain things here to affect it here. And vitamin D is going to help create the red blood cells so that you can actually function and actually be able to navigate with stress in your system. The more stress your body's under, the more chaos it creates. And walking has been shown to move the energy through the body, get your blood flowing, get you to think and get your BDNF in your brain up so that when you do have to deal in that capacity, however you're dealing with the narcissist in that capacity, you're not reactive. At least you can have conscious control of yourself and not react, take responsibility of what's going on inside yourself.
yeah. Okay, so if you haven't watched Dr. Foster yet, this is your warning that there will be spoilers here. So if you want to go watch it first and then come back, then you can definitely do that. But consider this your spoiler warning. Okay, so the show is really, really fascinating because it takes this woman who seems to have like this incredible life, Dr. Foster. It's set in England. She lives in this cute little town outside of London, and she's got her medical practice. She's got a husband. She's got a 13-year-old son. She's got a beautiful home, and life seems to be perfect for her. Her husband comes back from being away on a trip, some sort of a work trip, apparently. He gets home late at night. He jumps on top of her. They seem to have this great physical relationship too. In the morning, they're getting ready for their days. And all of a sudden she sees something fall out of his pocket, and it's a woman's lip balm. And he just brushes it off and says, oh, it was the only kind they had. I needed something for my lips, and that's the only one that the store had. And she's like, okay, I guess, you know. So then the next thing that happens is she uses his scarf the next day that day to go to work. And she gets to work and she goes in her office and she goes to hang up the scarf, and there's a long blonde hair on the scarf. And she starts to get suspicious about, what's that about, right? So she then goes into this obsessive, like, I need to know, I need to find out. I think he might be cheating. And he's, of course, gaslighting her. Oh, you're crazy. And that's not me. And you're really, losing it, and all this other stuff every time she tries to say something. And by the way, one of the things that narcissists do is they engage in what I call the 3 deadly sins of marriage, which are the 3 A's: abuse, addiction, and adultery. And if you want to know more about the 3 deadly sins of marriage, definitely check out my video on that topic. But, here he is, like, engaging in one of these 3 deadly sins, right? And also, by the way, here's where you see in this movie where some of these flying monkeys are lining up with him and actually even helping him. One of her medical partners actually sends a text and warns him that she's, like, left work early and probably going to follow him. And so he, like, gets that warning and goes to visit his mother at the nursing home instead. And it's kind of crazy how all this starts happening to her, right? And even these flying monkeys, people that she trusted, people that she even, like, confided in, she finds out are part of this whole thing. And so, what happens with the flying monkeys is they actually start, um, adding more trauma to you. And if you want to know more about that, check out my video on Operation Triangulation. I talk more all about that. But that's what happens. So anyway, she finds out that her husband is actually having an affair with this 22-year-old. And in the movie, or in the show, they actually show that she threw a 40th birthday party for him. So we know that this girl that he's having an affair with is roughly half his age, which is, the guy is like such a typical narcissist in so many ways. I mean, here he is. He's got to have all of that external supply. He's got the doctor wife, the perfect family. He wants to maintain that facade. He's got this big deal going. And by the way, we find out that the big deal that he's got going for his work is actually being funded by the father of this girl that he's having an affair with. And the father doesn't know that this guy's sleeping with his daughter. So she finds out, Dr. Foster finds out, because the girl comes to her office, that she's actually pregnant with her husband's child. It ends up to be a girl. But it's so crazy how she just becomes unglued with this whole thing. And that's what happens. Like, they make you crazy and they make you unglued. And then what happens is they turn around and use that against you and say, hey, you're crazy. But they forget about the fact that they made you that way, right? And so anyway, they end up having this massive showdown at the house at the end of the season 1. He smashes her head against the window. There ends up being a restraining order against him. He leaves town. The next season opens up with it's been 2 years. She's been living there with her son. All is well. He decides to move back to the town with his now young wife and their now 2-year-old daughter. And it just drives Dr. Foster crazy, because it doesn't seem like there's been any bad things with him. Like, there he is, like, living in this beautiful, big, massive house. And he's got this fantastic job. And she's like, where's this money coming from? And how is he getting all of this? So she actually goes to the house where he's about to move into and starts looking around like, can't believe this, right? And he sees her there and starts goading her and taunting her again. And, he does all the things that narcissists do. He hoovers, he gaslights, he has his flying monkeys there. It's just on and on. Like it's like very, very classically narcissistic. And by the way, no remorse. He blames her for the fact that he had to leave town. He blames her for the fact that there was an injunction against him. I mean, all of it is her fault. Like, no remorse whatsoever, no guilt. And it just drives her crazy. So here's the thing that I want you to know. They end up like one-upping each other, scorched earth, what we call it scorched earth litigation or scorched earth tactics, where they're just constantly, you did something, I want to win, I'm not going to let you win, I'm not going to let you win. And they get into this mud. And what happens is they really end up causing a lot of drama, trauma, and chaos, not just for themselves, but more importantly for their son, who is stuck in the middle of these two crazy people who are just trying to do whatever they can to destroy each other. And my message to you with this is stay out of the mud. I mean, he goaded her and she took the bait and then she looked crazy. And this is what happens when you are in negotiations, and especially when you lose control in negotiations. Don't fall for that. Don't do that. Don't get down into the mud. Instead, be strategic. You can create leverage. You can expose them using your leverage. You're going to have 7 ways that you can 100% rely on narcissists. There's lots of things that you can rely on narcissists not to do. But what can you 100% rely on them to do? Okay. Number one, you can 100% rely on them to ruin special occasions. And why is that? Why do they love to ruin special occasions? Well, they don't want to see you getting the attention. They hate when you are getting attention or other people are getting attention. I mean, that's just the bottom line. There is a supreme example in the whole Will Smith, Jada situation. I'm telling you, what a better example than right there. Here it was, the pinnacle of his career. He is supposed to get his Oscar and Chris Rock is there. He's supposed to make jokes about celebrities. That's his job. And, I get that this is my opinion, but, he makes a joke about Jada's bald head. And everybody knows at this point that 2 days before the Oscars, she had made a TikTok video that said, I don't give 2 craps about this bald head. She said she didn't care about it. Chris Rock says something about the bald head, and everybody's laughing, including Will Smith. And what happens? She gives him the look. If you had read Will Smith's book, you know that he was triggered by that because he didn't protect his mom, or he felt like he was supposed to have protected his mom when he was 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old. And his father, he had beaten his mom when he was a kid, and he felt like he should have been able to protect her. And so when Jada gave him the look, he was triggered by that. And so there he goes, and he goes up there and he does this thing, and she ruins that special occasion for him. But I've done other videos on YouTube about that, why narcissists love to ruin holidays. I highly encourage you to check those out. Why do narcissists love to ruin holidays? Why do they love to ruin your birthday? Because they can't stand for other people to be getting that attention. They just absolutely drives them crazy because other people are taking that supply away from them. So you can 100% rely on a narcissist to ruin special occasions. That's number one. Number two, the next thing that you can 100% rely on a narcissist to do is treat strangers better than you. You can 100% rely on that because it's that face, right? That outward thing where they are 100% want to look better than to the outside world. That's that diamond level supply that I talk about. That is more important to them than what's going on inside, because, they don't have that internal sense of value. So they're constantly trying to feed their emptiness inside and trying to feed it from external sources is better than internal sources. And so, because they already have you right there, and they can treat you poorly, degrading you, debasing you, and controlling you, and they get a sense of supply from that as well. So that's another form of supply that they're already getting from you. So by adulate them, like, in other words, they want the strangers to give them adulation and compliments and that sort of thing. And if they can get that from the strangers, oh, you're so wonderful, you're so amazing, all that sort of thing, well, then that's even better from their perspective. So that's why they treat strangers better than you. And so you can definitely 100% rely on that. They want strangers to think that they're wonderful. They're basically love bombing the strangers all the time. So you can 100% rely on that. So the number three thing that you can 100% rely on a narcissist to do is project and deflect. They will always project and deflect, meaning they're not going to take responsibility. So, even if you for sure show like you were supposed to do this thing, or, I used to have people who would work for me or whatever, and they were supposed to complete a task or whatever. Oh, it was always somebody else. It was somebody else's fault. It was always something happened or whatever. They can never, ever, ever take responsibility, project and deflect it, or it's your fault. If you had just been better, or if this had just happened or whatever, they can never, ever, ever take responsibility. And part of that is because they don't have any sense of self-worth. They don't have any sense of value. And so if they have to take responsibility, then somehow it takes away from them. So that's number three. Number four is what I call lying and denying. It's very closely related to projecting and deflecting, but it's a little bit different. And that is that, they will always lie and deny. And so again, even if you present like a text message or obvious evidence that says you did this thing, you said this thing, no, didn't happen. Nope. Lying and denying. They will absolutely lie right to your face. And hey, that becomes great leverage, by the way. If you end up having to litigate against them, you end up having a case with them. That's how you build your case. That's how you start building your summaries. That's how you start building your leverage, which is what I teach you guys. And if you want to know more about what happens when you catch a narcissist in a lie, definitely have a YouTube video on that. Highly encourage you guys to check that out. And if you agree with me so far, highly encourage you, write amen in the comments here, because you know that what I'm saying is true so far, right? I know you guys have seen this. So, 100% you can rely on a narcissist to do these things so far, right? All right. So the number five thing that you can 100% rely on a narcissist to do is gaslight. All narcissists gaslight. Whether you're dealing with a covert narcissist, a grandiose narcissist, a malignant narcissist, whatever supreme kind of narcissist you're dealing with, you can 100% rely on a narcissist to gaslight. They all gaslight. So what is gaslighting? Gaslighting is when they're trying to make you think you're crazy. They literally are trying to basically say that what you're seeing with your eyes, what you're hearing with your ears, what you're experiencing with your senses is not true. is not happening, is not what you're experiencing. And it literally eventually makes you think that you're crazy. I mean, I've been honest and candid with you guys in the sense that I have dealt with narcissists in my own life, not just in my law practice, which obviously I've seen a ton of them in my law practice as well, but I've had to deal with a couple of covert narcissists in my personal life. I had one as a business partner, and my husband and I had one in our family. And, you know, I've personally had to deal with gaslighting, and it's really just insane when you're experiencing this gaslighting, when you know you've had a conversation with somebody and they literally come back and say, "Oh, we talked about that, don't you remember?" And you know you didn't have that conversation, or you know that the conversation was something different than what you talked about. It's crazy. Or when they're presenting something that's completely different. I've actually seen it in court. I've actually seen lawyers who will say, "This is what the court order said." And the court order says something completely different. And even when presented with what the court order actually says, they'll say, "Well, I know that's what it says, but that's not what it says." And trying to convince the judge that it says something different, even though in black and white it'll say something different, just to try to see if they can get the judge to be convinced. And sometimes the judge will be convinced. I mean, it's pretty powerful, this gaslighting sometimes. So it's a scary kind of a tactic when somebody can be that influential, and especially when they're working on that person all the time. It's a tactic to destabilize you. It's a control tactic, and they've used it daily, day in and day out over time and over years. It can definitely be very, very effective. So that's number 5, and that's gaslighting. So number 6 of the 7 things that you can 100% rely on a narcissist to do is love bombing. And I also include in here, this number 6, future faking, narcissist faux apologies. You know, some people say apologies. I call them faux apologies, FAOU, because they're fake apologies, which they use when they're needed. It's all a manipulation. Everything is a manipulation. Everything they do say, every time they try to love bomb you, it's a manipulation. Every time they try to future fake you, it's a manipulation. It's all a game. It's all meant to manipulate you. It's all an attempt to manipulate you. And this I insert here at number 6 for a reason. The reason why I'm inserting it here at number 6, right before number 7, which I haven't gotten to number 7 yet, and you need to stay until I get to number 7 for a reason, is because this is where you're like, "Oh my God, I can't take it anymore. I'm out of here." You're plotting and planning to get the heck out of there. And if you're in a romantic relationship, you're packing your suitcase, maybe you visited the divorce attorney. If you're in a business relationship, you're finally like, "Okay, how do I get out of this thing?" And now they come back. Now they start to realize, "Oh, they're leaving. My supply is walking out the door." So they start to love bomb you again. Now they start to future fake you. Now they start to apologize because they don't want their supply source to leave. "Oh, things will be better." Or they start to do the things that they were supposed to do in the first place. This is what I saw in my business relationship with the person that I was in the relationship with. All of a sudden, the person started doing all the things that she was supposed to do before. You know, she started completing all the tasks that she said that she was going to do and then never had done. For me personally, I was like annoyed because I thought, "Oh, so you did know that what you were supposed to do, you just weren't doing it." So that, for me, that wasn't helpful. But for other people, you know, who are in an intimate relationship, they could get sucked back in, and oftentimes very much are, because they hear what they wanted to hear, especially, if you've invested a lot of time, you have children, maybe financially you're tied. This is where they're really, really good at saying exactly what they need to say in order to charm that person back into the fold. So 100% you can rely on a narcissist to get that person back, because they don't want to see their supply source gone. Not that they love you. Don't confuse number 6, the love bombing, the future faking, or the faux apology, with love. And it can be very, very confusing. Don't confuse this with they actually have affection for you, they love you, they want you, or anything like that. This is definitely a manipulation. All right, number 7, we made it to number 7. Number 7 is you can 100% rely on them to drain the life out of you, because they are sucking all of that energy from you. They are energy vampires. Before I knew these terms, I used to say that, when I was dealing with a narcissist, I used to say it was like a leech. I didn't know why I felt that way, but I felt that way. I mean, you can 100% rely, because it is a black hole. That need for supply that they have, it can never be filled. You are expected to try to fill it, but you can never fill it. And so that's number 7, is you can 100% rely on them to drain the life out of you. And you will end up feeling completely depleted, completely drained. And you're going to end up feeling like your soul is sucked. Toxic people aren't going away anytime soon. When you can really become that most powerful version of yourself, it really doesn't matter when they're around. That's really when you become free. They're like a gnat flying around. That's when life becomes different for you. So, how do you handle toxic people? Well, number 1, you have to create boundaries, right? Step 1, don't run. Step 1, don't run. But number 1 is create boundaries. Create super strict boundaries, because they've been conditioning you from the beginning. So when they've been conditioning you from the beginning, you've got to start creating these super strict boundaries so that you can start to heal. Your brain is like foggy, and it's been turned into some kind of mush sometimes. And in order for you to start to heal, you've got to start creating boundaries that are really, really strict, because they're going to look for ways in. They're going to look for ways to have other avenues to get in. And so, I often say, have one form of communication, one form of input, and I always say, have it be a way that you can actually document a date and timestamp, a way that they can't manipulate. Text messages can be manipulated. Conversations that are, oral, like talking, they can't be documented. So email is a perfect way to be documented, because it really can't be manipulated the same way that text messages can be manipulated. So one way of handling a toxic person is to create boundaries, create super strict boundaries. All right. So that's number 1. Number 2 is to pick your battles. They give you all kinds of battles, And you want to engage in every single one of those battles. Don't get involved in every single one. You want to end up defending yourself. You do want to defend yourself, don't try to defend yourself. When you defend yourself, you actually end up giving them that power. When you do that, you're basically saying there's an issue. So don't do that. Pick your battles. You don't have to engage in every single one that they throw out there for you, right? Sometimes there are battles that you want to engage in, sometimes there are not. And that actually brings me to number 3 as far as a way to handle a toxic person. And that is, don't take the bait. You don't have to take every single piece of bait that they throw out there either, because they will try to engage and get you to take bait. And part of the reason they do that, not just for narcissistic supply, which they do that too, because narcissists enjoy the process of triggering you. They enjoy the process of getting under your skin. They enjoy the process of watching you become emotional. They enjoy the process of manipulating you. They, of course, get off on that. They get a high from that. They get narcissistic supply from that. It's a form of enjoyment for them. Regular reasonable people aren't motivated by that, but narcissists are. Toxic people are. So you don't want to engage in it for that reason, but they also use your reaction against you. They go, look, there's the crazy one. There's the emotional one, while they stand over there calm and collected. And so there you are, and you go, wait a minute, you're the one who was like that. I was only reacting to you. You were the one who was like that in the first place. You were the one who started this thing. And they go, oh no, we're in this. And you're like, no, I was only being this way because you were this way. And then you're in it. Then you're there. No, you cannot take that bait. You can't go down that path. I know you want to, but you don't have to do that. Don't take that bait. And, that's how you become ready to slay. And if you are so ready to slay, I want you to put that in the comments right now. Ready to slay. Ready to slay. Put that in the comments right now, because that's how you handle toxic people. Ready to slay right now. And that's, what I talk about with slay. Strategy, leverage, anticipate what they're going to do, be 2 steps ahead of them, and focus on you, your position, your case. Anticipate what they're going to do and be 2 steps ahead of them. Anticipate that they're going to try to give you bait, and don't take it. So that's number 3 way to handle a toxic person. Number 4, you got to have an agenda or a plan. That's one of the ways that you're going to handle a toxic person. You got to have an agenda or a plan. And one of the ways that you can do that is, when you're going to have to go and talk to them, that they're going to want to bait you. That you're going to get emotional. That it's going to be hard for you. That your heart's going to start pounding. That it's going to take your breath away. That it's triggering for you. Have an agenda or a plan when you go to speak to them, and maybe even a time limit. That way, when it goes beyond the scope of what you're going to be talking about, or it reaches that time limit, you can just say, hey, oh no, we're sticking to this topic. Or if it reaches the time limit, you can just say, hey, I've got another engagement. I got to go. We're happy to pick this up another time. All right. I'm looking forward to talking to you the next time. Fine. But you're in and out, and it allows you to start feeling like you are taking control of the situation. Okay. So that's the next one. Have an agenda or a plan. And if you are getting ready to negotiate with a toxic person, you're getting ready to negotiate with anybody, even if it's not a toxic person, make sure to grab my free Crush My Negotiation prep worksheet. crushmydeal.com. Go to crushmydeal.com, get it. It's a free ebook, 15 pages. Crushmydeal.com. Go grab it right now. You must have this. I've had people win their entire deals on this thing. So grab it. It's totally free. Crushmydeal.com. Get it right now. Number 5, the number 5 way to handle a toxic person is what I call fluff or favor, vomit later. You're going to fluff up their ego, like you're fluffing up a pillow. You give them a little something that they want so that you get a little something that you want in return. Fluff up their ego, give them a little something that they want so you get a little something that you want in return. And how that looks is, can you handle resolving the QuickBooks this month? You are so good at it. You're so smart. It'll be done so much more efficiently if you do it than if I do it. I am terrible at it. Don't say anything good about yourself because they don't want to hear that. So you get something done that you want done. And I say fluff or favor, vomit later, because, if you need to feel like you need to go vomit later, go do that. But then you got something done that you wanted done, and they got what they wanted, which is their ego got fluffed up. So fluff or favor, vomit later. That's number 5 way to handle a toxic person. It is so hard to find a great mentor in every aspect of your life for all the different things that you need. I was so excited when I found Masterclass, because you can have the dream mentor in every area of your life. Like somebody like Anna Wintour for me, because she's such a great, effective female leader in the areas of leadership and creativity. But you can find a masterclass in any area of your life, in anything that you want to become the best in whatever it is that you want to be the best at. Masterclass is the only streaming platform that you can learn and grow in over 200 areas for just $10 a month for an annual membership. You can have unlimited access to whatever instructor you want, and you can even access it on your phone, your computer, your TV, whatever it is that you stream from, right? And the classes make a difference in 88% of the members that access it. So I know I have learned so much myself in being a more effective communicator. Plus, every membership comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Don't wait another moment for your learning journey. Just go ahead and give Masterclass a try, because right now our listeners, our viewers, get an additional 15% off any annual membership at masterclass.com/negotiate. That's 15% off any masterclass at masterclass.com/negotiate.